Morehouse College telling Negroes, ain't nobody gonna give you nothing you didn't earn. Nigga, please. The Obama presidency has left casualties in its wake. Jeremiah Wright, Jesse Jackson, Cornel West, Tavis Smiley, Shirley Sherrod. Right? Obama can excite us, but under him we have done far more poorly than anybody else. He's a silent killer. He's the kind of guy that's joking about Donald Trump and killing Osama bin Laden. And to lecture us, but he doesn't want to take up the other part of that responsibility, which is to represent us. Led to some political consequences that have sparked the rise of a figure like Donald Trump. That played us, let's be honest. Anybody with that much power over people because they love him that much are going to play you. And you got to be Jesus not to play somebody. The white Secret Serviceman heard Michelle Obama tell her husband, every now and again, take the black people's side.
Dr. Michael Eric Dyson was recorded in conversation with Dr. Khalil Muhammad on April 3, 2016, during the 13th National Black Writers Conference, which is run by the Center for Black Literature at Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn, New York. If you enjoy this video or find it informative, please support us by sharing it with others and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Enjoy this important and dynamic conversation.
So I appreciate you coming out, and of course to have Professor Dyson here with us is even special. And just so that I'm always mindful that New York City is a big place, to anyone who is a longtime supporter, user, or fan of Schomburg Center, thank you for your support. So this closing panel was inspired by an essay written a couple of years ago called Writing Race in America. And the subtitle by David Wright was White Authors Have a Duty to Create Black Characters. Now this is in part the frame for the entire conference, although it strikes me that there's an interesting way to invert the frame. Here we have a black author writing about a black president and a presidency that has always historically been white. So one way to think about this is the obligation or the challenge of black authors to write about institutions of power and privilege that are wholly unique, separate, and distinct from the black experience. So that's how we're going to think about the next 45 minutes in terms of having Professor Dyson here. So the Black Presidency, when did the book start?
Yeah, correct. I want to thank Dr. Green again and Dr. Reynolds for this extraordinary event and for the honor of being here, and to Professor Muhammad, one of the most brilliant and gifted interlocutors more broadly across the intellectual landscape. And Schomburg's loss is Harvard's gain. But we know he'll find his way back to Harlem and to Brooklyn very, very quickly. Let's celebrate his achievement. I said, look, this is the left wing Skip Hicks, right? And this man is going to take over. I didn't know I was being that prophetic. I should go up into the institution even more quickly than I thought. So God bless us. You know, this book began the moment Obama was elected President of the United States of America. I happened to be there that night in Grant Park, where Reverend Jackson was shedding tears. People were looking askance at his tears, but I think they were quite genuine because he could imagine the path from Dr. King's assassination to now Obama's potential inauguration 40 years later was a remarkable trajectory, and for much of that, he carried us symbolically as a tremendous figure. But I was there that night working for TV One, making commentary, and I must say, when Wolf Blitzer and CNN announced that this man has been elected as the 44th President of the United States of America, it was pretty remarkable. It was pretty, you know, it was pretty unbelievable, really. And I'm in that, you know, tweener generation where, you know, we still have pride in black firsts. We still looked to a certain degree to Jet Magazine to see what was on TV during the week and who was black. And still remember Sidney Poitier slapping that white man. Yeah. Right? Still remember when that white man slapped him and he slapped him back in the heat of the night. That was news.
Was Mr. Colbert ever in this greenhouse, say last night about midnight?
Gillespie.
Yeah.
You saw it.
Well, I saw it.
Well, what are you gonna do about it?
I don't know.
I'll remember that. There was a time when I could have had you shot.
We didn't have Twitter or Perez Hilton or Takeout Media, but when we saw that black man, that shiny prince of black manhood to pilfer from Ossie Davis about Malcolm X, that was news. So I'm of that generation vicariously. I didn't live through it. Myself as an older figure, but too old for some of the younger generation. So it was still a remarkable thing that a black man could become president of the United States of America. And I was heading, as it turns out, to Harvard the next day to do a series of lectures on Jay-Z for the Du Bois lectures. Had my stuff written out, ready to go. And then I said on the plane right there, can I really talk about Jigga when Barack Obama has been named the President of the United States of America? I said, nah, not really. So for the next 3 days, off the top of my dome, I lectured at Harvard about Obama and different aspects of it. So the book began there. It began to take shape, and it's in poet forms, of course, but thinking out loud about what it would mean to have a black president, a figure of estimable worth and incredible intelligence, the magnitude and the breadth of both his learning and his ability to convince America to vote for him. Because Obama had an idea that no other black person in the history of this world has successfully carried forward. I will run the historically most powerful empire in the history of the world. And so a lot of people wanted to, he's the one to carry through with it. So I was intrigued by him, having known him since 1991, 92, as to what his presidency will look like. So the book began to take shape there.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So one of the interesting things about Mike's book is that, unlike previous biographies of the president, this is a biography of the presidency. And it's a key distinction precisely because the book essentially retells the moment of his inauguration, framed by criticisms about whether he was black enough, even as a candidate, to a kind of early appreciation for the trajectory of criticisms that the president has faced and what he was capable of. So that kind of writerly intervention, I think, is important to note. But you have a story, you have a backstory. So tell us a little bit about that backstory, which gives you a certain kind of insight and credibility to talk about the man, even before he becomes president.
See, that's why he is who he is. See, if I'd have known I was doing that, I could have said that articulately, and I could have saved myself from trouble. Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what I'm doing, right? What he said. And the framework is indeed the presidency, and how this occupant has forever altered, colored, darkened the corridors of power by virtue of his presence there, an institution that heretofore had been a white institution, a white male institution, even more particularly. And so you're absolutely right. I wanted to take measure of that. I wanted to engage that institution to the degree that it would bend to and yield to the pressures, demands, insights, desires, and preoccupations of this particular black figure, but also the collective enterprise of imagination about political and social futures that black people would bring to bear. And so I wanted to do that on the one hand, but you're absolutely right, having met Obama for the first time at McDonald University in the outskirts of Chicago, where he, I, and the actress Cheryl Lee Ralph were on a Black History panel. Now, I can tell you he's a real brother because later on he said, you know, we were on that panel, Mike, and you ain't saying much to me and I ain't saying much to you, and we were basically looking at Cheryl Lee Ralph. I said, and then later on, when Cheryl Lee Ralph married Senator Vincent Hughes, I said, if I'd known you like yellow Negroes, before versus here. So the thing is, you know, we met then we had cordial conversations. We joined the same church, right? It's kind of a revelation here.
Was this Trinity?
Trinity United Church of Christ.
Jeremiah Wright.
He gets more stuff out of me, man. I'm telling you. Look over the side. So I joined Trinity United Church of Christ. I would see him in church. So for those who were saying that he never went to church, no, he went to church. He heard them sermons. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. He wasn't there often, though. I couldn't tell because neither was I. So what's interesting, intellectuals, on the road, preachers, ourselves. So Obama was there. The way he is now is the way he was then. Reasonable, balanced, articulate, humble, self-deprecating.
Someone also between Cory Booker and Harold Ford.
Between Cory Booker and Harold. This guy right here. Right, but you're right in that sense. Both the shades of ideology along that continuum, as well as his kind of approach to politics, because they were new black politicians in that sense. The thing about Obama, of course, and of course Cory Booker and Harold Ford, all of them to the manner born. They understand the need and necessity to be rooted in black America, all of them. The outcome may be different, but Obama was also ambitious. There's a story, as you know, as a Chicagoan, but Obama was running for state senate, was decided to run for state senate. The previous occupant of that office had decided to run for the United States Congress after Mel Reynolds. Then the occupant of that office fell into some hard times, right? And we'll leave it there. And so the reality is that this woman said, I'm going to run for that office. But when Jesse Jackson Jr. threw his hat into the ring, all bets were off. So she said, let me go back to the state senate and let me do that. And in Chicago politics, it was like everybody, it's a pecking order. You served your time, you did your thing. This particular office, then, you have to acknowledge that the older person or the person more senior gets the nod. Well, the younger guy named Obama wasn't really counting. He said, let me think about that. Not only did he think about it and said, no, I think I'm going to keep my name in, and didn't give her seat back rhetorically, symbolically. In other words, he said he's going to stay in the race. He figured out a way not only to remove her from officially being able to run, but everybody else who was on the slate.
Challenged her signature, right?
Challenged her signature, but he got everybody else wiped out. That's pretty Machiavellian. I don't know, but he's a real nice little guy, you think? Tall guy, and yes we can. That guy is ruthless at a certain level, politically speaking, right? He's a silent killer. He's the kind of guy who's joking about Donald Trump and killing Osama bin Laden. That's the kind of guy he is. That didn't start there. So, Obama was a guy I talked to, interacted with, engaged, worked with. Look, when he was running for the Senate, at WVON, I think a women's expo, and I was the keynote speaker.
WVON, Black Radio, AM station, Chicago.
That's right. Critic, scholar of history. I'm just saying some stuff. He's breaking it down for you. So at the VON gathering, to tell you how times were different. I was the headline name, and they wanted Obama to share the stage with me. Can this young man come to your event, and can you shout him out, use your rousements to get the people involved with him and support him? I said, sure. And, it was about the size of this room, and Obama couldn't fill it. I was there, I was the headliner. I said, great, this young man that I want you to consider, right? So he came on and did his thing, and I supported him and, of course, endorsed him, gave some dough as well. And so, that kind of thing, back and forth. I'd see him here and there, Lyndon Johnson Rice's birthday party. Tell him who Lyndon Johnson Rice is.
Daughter of publisher John Johnson.
Ebony Ken, So, I'd see him at the Christmas parties, and we'd talk. And I remember once, I guess I should say this is being recorded. So I said, hey man, look, I'm doing this book on Bill Cosby, and I'd like for you to learn the book. And this is what he said. He says, well, Michael, he says, I'm sure it's great. Typically, he's always. He said, I'm sure it's going to be great. He says, the problem is that what you see in your book, people will automatically think I'm saying. And it's not that I disagree, because I haven't read your book and I don't know what you're going to say. He said, and I've told all my friends that at this point, I'm probably going to have to stop nerving, but I'll certainly support the book when it comes out, and then tell people to buy it and do what I can to support. I was like, oh, okay, this dude is trying to be president. Like already, as a newly minted senator, I knew, and I respected that. I knew what he was about. I knew what his trajectory was. And so I had that interaction with him, talked to him, engaged him, friendly with him. We weren't the best of friends, but I was friendly with him. And that was brought to bear upon our relationship. I served twice as a surrogate for him. I supported him when many black people were supporting Hillary Clinton. And when they were talking,
including Marcia.
including Marcia, man, and many nights spent on the couch, bro. Your people from Southside Chicago do it, y'all. You know how they do it. Like I was like, whoa, really? We getting personal like this? So I supported him early on, and the irony is she's the one who introduced me to him.
Yeah.
She's the one who hooked up the thing with Shirley Raff and everything. So she actually, and Obama didn't forget that. Obama later on, I'll give you an example. We were stumping in Cincinnati, and he said, he told the doctor, he said, come over here. So he said, take this picture. And he says, Mike, stand right here. And he does the victory sign. He said, now send this to Marcia, show her real what it looks like.
Did he say that? Wow.
Oh, he's like that. He's on some subtle Snoop Dogg thing right there. Oh yeah. So when people, argue about this, he's like, bro, tell me, he's black in a way that.
So I have to say this though. So given that sketch, a kind of a character sketch over, let's say, a 15-year period preceding his run for the White House, you presented a person who is incredibly sensitive to the context in which both his physical presence matters and his rhetorical presence.
Right.
Which is to say that what we got in the presidency was not an accident.
Right. That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Look, for those who thought that Barack Obama was going to be a revolutionary figure to that degree, that he would challenge the institution, were sorely misled. Your point there about both the physical presence and the rhetorical one, and a great deal of this book is spent engaging Obama's rhetorical engagement with the office itself, the edifice of the presidency, and the lethal limits that are arbitrarily and also witheringly imposed upon the people who occupy it. They are at once, paradoxically, the most powerful person in the world, like whoever's the heavyweight champion is the baddest man on earth. Whoever occupies that presidency, the most powerful man, perhaps soon woman, in the world, and at the same time so limited in terms of what they are capable of doing in the real world. So Obama understood the sublime paradox that underwrote his historic achievement. And in the one sense, he exploited the tabula rasa. He was a clean slate. So people could inscribe on him what they wanted. And it was pretty much true because, whatever you wrote about him was true because we didn't really know what his history was. And he was agile enough, nimble enough to box in and out and to dance in and around what people thought about him to get enough people together, millions in this country. Never a majority of white people, by the way. Right? Never a majority of white people, by the way. To believe in him, although, percentage-wise, his numbers were pretty high of any Democrat in the last, 40, 50 years.
42% in 08, 39.
Exactly. And so, when you get... So, when you think about that, and then the percentage of black people, of course, who supported him, 96% the first time, 93 to 90% the second time. So when you've got a guy like that who is intelligent, who's keenly insightful and analytical, and in a philosophical sense, abstractly about the nature of the office and the individual sense of occupation of that office, there was bound to be tremendous tension. Even in those of us who appreciated, loved him, and supported him, but those of us who understood similarly that there's a distinction between you as the occupant of the office and the office of the presidency, and the responsibilities, obligations, and goals and aspirations that must be somehow both met or at least addressed in a specific fashion. And I think, let's be honest too. the overwhelming majority of black people are in love with Barack Obama. He is the collective boo of black Americans. And even progressive and left-wing people, they were like, don't be best about boo that. Don't say that about bad. Don't say that about bad. And I tell you what, and like any other man, he'll exploit that. You got to be Jesus not to exploit that. And this is what tricks me. This is what's tricky about black people. Now, and I'm not talking about, and I won't name any names, black critics who have been especially vociferous in their vituperation. They're nasty. They're hurtful and harmful ad hominem. We can alliteratively assert that. Now, look, and I still love them too, but that ain't my stilo. That's not my style, and I think it's a counterproductive approach. However,
Dyson dedicated 10,000 words in the New Republic recently to taking basically your record apart. He argued, he tried to school you in how to criticize Obama in that piece. Exactly. And he talked, your former student, about it's better to say you support the guy, he's up against a lot, he's failing, or he has failed on some occasions, than what you do. To which he says that you said, well, that's how we're different. What's wrong with his approach?
Well, I mean, he can have the approach he wants. You know, again, I want everybody to lift their voice. But the question is whether you're going to be honest and candid about it. You see, when I hear talk about Wall Street government, Main Street left out to dry, when I hear talk about a drone presidency and I see the innocent lives lost, when I see massive surveillance that Brother Snowden and Sister Manning and others have disclosed, righteous indignation flows. Ecological catastrophe, on to corporate greed, then we got the new Jim Crow, you got decrepit schools and so forth. Then if he says, no, we need polite language in order to support the president and maybe have a criticism every now and then, I say, no, we two different kind of black men.
even those black people who are willing to be in principle critical of Obama get dissed by black people who can't make a distinction because they love Obama so much and have invested in him so much. Especially, my mama called me one day. Now, Michael, I know you're a scholar and I know you're a critic, but that's the first black president. Be careful. I'm getting warning shots from my mama? Really? You trying to take me down over your bay? So the reality is that, and Obama actually had heard that story and reminded me. That's how funky he is. He's like, your mama don't really.
Because he's keeping track.
He's keeping track because he has a long memory. And it gets vindictive. And I know black Americans in love with him, but he was able to escape the scrutiny of his abusive practices in a certain way. To black America, warning us, cajoling us, scolding us in ways he would never do to white America. Because we love him so much. Now, none of y'all don't know about this, but I don't like some girls who didn't like me as much as I like them. That's hard for me to admit. It's been years, so I admit it now. But if you ain't never been in a relationship where you love that person a little bit more than they love you, like them a little bit more than they like you, to see what that person will do, even if they're wonderful, even if they're completely humane, there's something about having the power over you in their hands makes what they do especially consequential and faithful, but also inevitably and unavoidably abusive and exploitative at a certain level. And Obama, black people cannot acknowledge, and I love this guy, I support this guy to this day, but I'll tell you, there have been some complicated and remarkably regretful things that have been done in the name of this presidency, and black people, even more regretfully, have failed to even acknowledge it. And it's like collectively, we're incapable of acknowledging it.
So if this were Oprah, this would be like the Chris Brown Rihanna moment.
Correct. That's brilliant. That is. I might take that.
I mean, it is a kind of metaphor of domestic abuse. I mean, this is probably overly charged in the way that we wanted to have a conversation about this. But you are suggesting that there was something wrong in the imbalance between his most loyal constituents, the people who essentially made it impossible for him to be president, particularly black women,
Yes.
to extend the metaphor of domestic abuse and his actual leadership on issues that matter to him. I'm going to share a Schomburg story. So we've all watched Ta-Nehisi Coates and even Jelani Cobb go from being very smart writers to being really national figures in our ongoing conversation around race in this country. And I had them both in a conversation preceding the 2012 presidential race. This was before, the race was just about to kick off, but essentially early enough. And we had a conversation about the economic policies of the New Deal in relation to the Obama's first term.
Right.
Thinking that we might offer some historical wisdom in a conversation between a historian and Ta-Nehisi at the time, who had not published the case for reparations, but was clearly thinking about what the president could or should do in regards to redressing this historical economic marginalization. Well, smart conversation as you could imagine, except that within 24 hours, Schomburg was receiving essentially hate mail from people who were there or who watched the conversation. Because whether or not you can all take yourself back to that space before the second term, and before the pardons, and before the criminal justice reform, and before the Fergusons and all of that, here was essentially, we can't even have a conversation. There can't be a public engagement around the policies that govern the most powerful nation on earth, of which its most marginalized population continues to suffer disproportionately as a result of the policies of that government, which happens to be run by black people.
It can't be better stated than that. And that brilliant analysis and abbreviated genealogy is where we are today still. Now, as you've already indicated in your summary statement, generously so, the pardons, criminal justice reform, all of which I agree and I talk about. But even that is a bit of legerdemain and kind of trickery there, because, people, he's done more than the last 7 presidents combined in terms of pardons of a particular order with the nonviolent drug offense. Altogether, overall, not so much, right? And this guy has been more stingy, right? More stingy with the pardon. And look, that ain't subject to congressional approval. You can't claim that obstruction is going on. That's just straight up what you and your conscience and your people who inform you are willing to do. And you're so right, though, in terms of the broad stroke against the canvas of history here, with you, Cobb, and Coates, 3 of the smartest black people we got on earth. And if y'all can't sit down and have a conversation, and y'all are loving people, y'all ain't none of y'all haters, right? And I don't care what it means, however you mean it. Ain't none of y'all haters. And so if you can't have Muhammad, Coates, and Cobb engaging in an argument, and you invested, we invested. The reason I love this guy so much, we invested in him. This is what we hoped for. This is the kind of stuff we wanted to see paid off with our vision and investment, right? And we wanted a highly articulate, beautiful soul, very sharp and handsome, and real smart guy who loved us but who knew how to talk they stuff, but who could represent our vision. That ain't easy. So all of that investment, Coates as well, Cobb as well, 2 brilliant scholars and the leading black public intellectual now, this is what we invested in, and yet you are restraining them. You are constraining them, I'm sorry. You are imposing restraints upon them and really, literally, basically implying threat against them and sending hate mail because they're having a reasonable conversation in defense of black people. No one black journey can ever exhaust the journey of blackness. No one life can ever be put above the entire trajectory of our movement or the tradition that nurtures and sustains us. So for me, right, so as much as I and we love Obama, we got to hold him accountable. You got kids too, you love them? You mean you don't say nothing to them? Oh, that's my child, I can never be critical. That ain't the Negroes I know. Right? Oh, that's my boo, that's my husband, I can never be critical. Oh, really? Right? So why is it that when it comes to Obama, you know what? Because given the rather sharp, stunning, astonishing, but very much accurate analogy that Professor Muhammad has put forth vis-a-vis Rihanna and Chris Brown, black people think tough love is the only available love for black America. And we confuse tough love sometimes with abuse. Black people want more of it. When Bill Cosby was doing this thing, to take another example, berating black people, putting us down. I wrote a book.
They give us more.
Oh my God, we were begging for it.
Buying tickets to the
Come on, buying tickets to the parade of your pathology, right? And you were the Disney character, and you didn't even know. You were in a drama that Bill Cosby is shilling for, because he was the master pitchman for American corporate capital, right? I mean, unparalleled. Before OJ, right, and before Jordan. So Bill Cosby was berating black America long before he was alleged to have raped many white women. Yes. But it wasn't a problem when he was berating black women. It wasn't a problem when he's berating young black children. He says, your garbage. Your garbage gets out 2:30 every day when it comes to school, right? And then he said the following. Pretty soon you're going to have a DNA card in the ghetto to determine if you're making love to your grandmother. Oh, y'all don't listen, I do. That's my job to read closely. He said, you do the math. A woman has a baby who's a teen mother. That baby of that teen mother has a baby when she's a teen. He says, you do the math. 26 years old, I might be saving you from having sex with your own grandmother. Had a white man said that reeks of eugenics. That reeks of the worst, pathological assault upon black people in the name of resisting and removing pathology. That is the Moynihan Report on steroids, smoking crack. So the point is, but we, as Professor Muhammad said, we beg for more. I got death threats. I had to do a book signing in LA. I thought they were joking. Like, all right, what? Oh, from Jello Pudding Pop? Are you serious? And it was black people. Because we are resistant to anybody. And here's the irony. The very people who are beating us up, if somebody else steps up to try to challenge them, they get beat up more for trying to protect black people from getting beat up by him. That's what happens sometimes when you remove the abuser from the home. Yes. And the woman sides with the abuser because she needs his paycheck or his love or affection over against her own children and their welfare. That's the kind of pathology we got. Now, I'm not making it that extraordinary, but I'm saying it's on a trajectory, and it's certainly on a continuum. And yes, our inability to tell the truth and have a reasonable conversation leads to, and let me tell you this, and I'm going to make an extraordinary statement to some of you, leads to what we see now with Donald Trump. Yes. Now, I don't go with those people who blame Obama for Donald Trump, but I tell you where I will hold him accountable. Hey, race is going to be talked about, sir. Yes. Your choice is, are you going to get ahead of it and ride that beast and direct it, or are you going to lead from behind and get stampeded on and trampled? Obama's hesitation left a vacuum. Yes. Had Obama been out there placing his rhetoric, his eye, his black tongue and mouth on the rhetoric of civic engagement and civil and intellectual deconstruction of race, there wouldn't have been as big a gulf as when he refused to speak, and now all the vultures descend and begin to pick apart the body politic, and race suffers as a result of that. So I'm saying his own personal and existential hesitation led to some political consequences that have sparked the rise of a figure like Donald Trump. But that's what happens when Coates, Cobb, and Muhammad, sounds like a law firm, can't get together and have a serious conversation
adjudicating white America.
That sounds like some Harvard stuff to me.
Well, I'm curious about this issue of the body, to borrow one of Coates' metaphors, because it seems to me, looking at a greater distance than even you, both located in proximity to the president in D.C., but also with relationship, I don't have either. It seemed to me that he wanted to have it both ways. Yeah. He wanted to both absorb, literally like a black hole, all the light of Black America, come into me, and then radiate back out to the world these kinds of universals. But in doing so, he essentially said that because of who I am and what I have achieved, none of what you suffer can occupy a national space. We can't talk about police violence because I don't suffer from police violence.
That's right.
And it's only in the aftermath of Trayvon Martin because of what? Because of protest,
Right,
because
right.
of dissent.
Right.
And I think one of the more telling moments is the case of Hadia Pendleton. So many of you have heard about an organization called Black Youth Project 100. If you haven't heard about it, it's a youth-led, queer-based, Black Lives Matter inspired organization. It precedes Black Lives Matter, but for purposes of getting to the point, you can think of it that way. Hadia Pendleton, 15 years old, sings at the second inauguration, comes home to Chicago, is killed by a stray bullet on the south side in the same neighborhood as the president's home. Now, in a conversation inspired by a national debate about gun control, if there was ever a single death, a single casualty, a single tragedy of a nation obsessed with guns, you would think this would be the one. And yet, there's no President Obama giving a Newtown speech on the south side of Chicago, but for the Black Youth Project getting 45,000 signatures of a petition to bring, ultimately not the president, but the first lady to Chicago.
That's right. That's right.
So, again, standing in for his accomplishment, only in this country can the son of a Kansas mother and a Kenyan immigrant ascend to, becomes the constant refrain for essentially an American exceptionalism that cannot contain your failures. And certainly not your failures that are collective failures of failed structural policies, but in fact only individual failures, which of course America has long accepted.
Right. Amen. Amen. I'll get the take on that. I'll get the take on that one because I talk in the book about what you so brilliantly laid out here, vis-a-vis the body, right? And, you know, before Ta-Nehisi Coates, Howard Thurman said the time and place of Howard Thurman, the great black mystic and prophetic preacher, whose book, Jesus and the Disinherited, Martin Luther King Jr. carried the breadth and depth across this nation in his valise. And so, Howard Thurman said, the time and place of a person's life on earth is the time and place of his body, or her body. So, the scandal of particularity that those of us who are Baptist ministers or Christian ministers speak about, God, big, universal, becomes limited, and becomes a human being through the body of Jesus, available for, you know, both resurrection, but before that, of course, crucifixion. The body, the scandal of particularity, that God, the cosmic consciousness, gets reduced to this human being, is what happens, racially speaking, in terms of cosmic consciousness reduced into the shape of a black body. And American ideals, the cosmic suite of American democracy gets reduced to this black body. The brilliance of what you said there, and what I try to talk about in my book, is that when his body substitutes for ours, unlike with Jesus, I died for your sins, right? His body becomes exempt from the penalties we pay, and we have to die for his sins. Man, if I was in church, if I was in church, if I was in church right there, right? I mean, look at that flip of a script. If I was Freddie Haynes, and I could preach it. So the point is that, as you said, the black hole analogy is beautiful. I'm writing a book about the physics of race right now. The black hole, because he absorbs all the light, and yet doesn't want, and another way of putting it in terms of not only a physical and a metaphor in terms of physics of race, but think about it in terms of Obama's inability to acknowledge what he is responsible for in the interaction with black America as our substitute. Obama was big on the fact that he's not going to be president of black America. If he said it to us once, he said it to us 50 times. I am not the president of black America. No shit, Sherlock.
And we didn't want president, apparently.
Clearly.
Sorry.
Clearly, right? Clearly then. So now you're telling us you're not the president of Black America, and black people go, see, that's what we're saying, because he's not the president of Black America, he's the president of everybody. We use that to explain why Obama couldn't address what you so brilliantly talked about, our issues. That American exceptionalism got flipped, and now it became the fact that this exceptional black man would be representative of all of the struggles of black people, and at the same time, their erasure was manifest in his body and rhetoric, and his inability to open up and tell the truth about what black people were facing was the price we paid for acknowledging him as our substitutionary leader. And that's a hell of a sacrifice. And, see, he loved to quote the, look, speaking of access, I was at Oprah's crib. We meet him and...
Oprah doesn't have a crib. We have crib.
Yeah.
Whatever she has.
For cosmic repose in Barbara. Santa Barbara, right? We're going to acronym. Yeah, her name was massive. That's right. That's right. It was amazing. And we were, and by the way, we were on the outside in a tent, and that thing was phenomenal. Okay. If I could live in that place right there, I'd be good. So we're out there. After she does this tremendous fundraising program. Got to be about 2007 or so. And me, Chris Rock, and Obama on the corner. And Chris Rock says, he starts off, I'm sure you heard the story. Since then, he was like, in his voice, he was like, my daddy told me, that you can't beat white people. He's talking about, pointing them. Like, if you're in a fight, beating them means I scored this round 10, you get 9. 10, 9. And at the end of the day, at the end of the fight, I got 107, you got 101. You can't beat him. He said, but you can knock him the hell out. Right? Obama was like, we laughed, And he tells the story of Jerry Cooney. He says, I don't know if y'all remember Jerry Cooney, the great white hope, the last great white hope, probably. Well, before the Klitschko brothers, but they weren't great white hope. They were actually champions. So Jerry Cooney, the American white hope, was fighting, I think it was Larry Holmes. And Larry Holmes was whipping him to no end. Bloody, battered, beat him down, and they had to stop the fight because he knocked him out. That is, he being Larry Holmes, knocked out Jerry Cooney on a TKO. And Chris Rock looks at Obama and says, and when they went to the cards, when you went to the cards, they had Cooney ahead. And had he not knocked him out, he would have lost the fight to the white man. So he turns to Obama, you got to knock him the hell out. We're laughing, ha, 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 ha. Now Obama loves to tell another Chris Rock story. Remember Chris Rock said, black people always want to be celebrated for things they should do. Like when he says, I take care of my kids. And he's like, you should take care of your kids. That's what you're supposed to do. You don't want to get no love for taking care of your kids. I take care of my kids. What you think you're supposed to do with your kids, right? So Obama loved to tell that part of it. But he didn't like to tell the other part, where Chris Rock goes, black men were basically the calves for white supremacy. And that white people rolled our backs, and yeah, every black man over 75 is a racist because he hates what white people have done, right? All that ain't got nothing to say. So this is the more, if you will, accessible argument to the brilliant one you made, in the sense that he wants the goodies for being associated with black people, one of which is the privilege to remonstrate against us and to correct us and to lecture us. But he doesn't want to take up the other part of that responsibility, which is to represent us, which is to stand up for us. Because, look, you go to any black temple, mosque, synagogues, church, they saying what Obama and Bill Cosby were saying. Don't tell me about the white man. Tell me about what you're doing. Tell me what you got in your hand, Moses. What, right? Every Sunday, the same minister, the same imam, the same preacher is saying, white person, white America, get your foot off the neck of black people and let us move forward and challenge that white supremacy. No better example than Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson can be seen on 60 Minutes 30 years ago when they did one of the many stories on him, where he's saying that it takes more than a person who has semen to be a father. He said any old person, he said, can make a baby. It takes a man to raise a baby. Now, Obama said the same thing basically at the church in Chicago at, what's the name of the church there, the South Side, the Pentecostal, Apostolic.
Brazier's church.
Right, Brazier's church. Remember on Father's Day,
Right.
but Obama said the following. He said, any fool can have a baby, but it takes a man to raise one. Now, you ain't gonna call no white people. The reason we know you ain't gonna call no white people fool, because you ain't ever called no white people person a fool. Right, that's the kind of license you take with your own. Now, this is how black people defend it. Oh man, you're being hypersensitive. That's how black people talk. I get it. But you can't have it both ways. This is your point. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that's how black people talk and then not demand he talk and do like black people do.
Right.
Because what black people do is talk like that and then represent us. What black people do is talk like that and then stand up to white supremacy and name it for what it is in its public volatility and its utter moral chaos in the public sphere. So you can't have one without having the other. And let's get even more funky and dynamic about it. I think I cited the footnotes. Maybe I don't do this in the body of the book. I didn't want to get that deep with it.
A drone might show.
A drone, that's right.
I'll be the one that takes pictures.
You ain't lying. On my doorstep. And so a former Secret Serviceman writing a book, a second one, about the presidency and his relationship and the relationship with the Secret Service tells a story that they were protecting the Obamas. They loved Michelle Obama for two reasons. A, she touched them and was very kind to them. You know, the rest of the first ladies were kind of formal. She would be very kind and loving on her family, engaging them. They loved her for that. Secondly, she would scold Obama for wasting these men's time and women's time if they were running like real late. They're like, they got schedules too. What you doing? You know Michelle brought it back, right? But they didn't like her for two other reasons. A, she didn't like the Republicans, and she was hard on them and hated them. And then in the presidential limo, the white Secret Serviceman heard Michelle Obama tell her husband, every now and again, take the black people's side. Now, first of all, you want to thank her for saying that and wonder, secondly, why the hell she got to tell him that? Why you got to tell him? So he ain't gone out there to do, I don't link this to further what you're saying, and then just an anecdote. He didn't go on his own to tell the Trayvon story. The first thing he did with Trayvon, he gave that little effete, ineffectual press release. Nation of laws, the jury has spoken. What? So then when they said, bruh, what you doing? He got in that White House and he delivered one of the most poignant, and to that point, the most powerful speech on race he had given, explaining to white America why it is that black people had been besieged by the epic tide of grief that had swept across our horizon.
But even a puddle of water looks like an ocean in a desert, right?
That's it, bro. We were drinking it up big time. We were drinking it up big time.
So I want to, we have a few questions and we want to get to those. I'm going to end at least this part of the conversation with, you finished the book with an analysis of his eulogy of the Charleston Nine.
Oh, yes.
And I was a little surprised at how you got, shall we say, emotionally taken by his rendition of Amazing Grace.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm a preacher.
But even before that, you talk about Hillary Clinton, the candidate's own treatment of the Charleston Nine in the wake. So on one hand, we get, again, the symbolic evocation of a black tradition of redemption, of deferred grace, of something to look forward to after this terrible life. And here we have Clinton giving her own version of what happened in Charleston and making very explicit demands on this country. Talk about what she says, because I'm not sure all of us caught that.
That's right. That's a great point, and I'm a sucker for both of them. Right? I'm a preacher, so I'm going to get caught up in the rhetoric. Oh, it's sad. Won't they do it? Yes! Right, I'm down with that, right, in the moment. And look, those performative acts of rhetoric were survival mechanisms for black people whose backs were against the wall. So I'll never apologize for celebrating the ability of black rhetoric, as I tried to do last night when the great Dr. Brenda Green so honored me, least of all worthy, but most of all grateful for that award. But I will never, and as I said last night, my first introduction to black literacy and black rhetoric and black writing was black preachers. And the best of them have been phenomenal, right here in Brooklyn. Sandy Ray, after Jesus takes the towel to wipe the disciples' feet and has a sermon, a conversation with a towel. You know what? See, and I get a little bit, I got a little chip on my shoulder because we can recognize, I just wrote a piece on Kobe Bryant that's going to be on the cover of Slam magazine calling him the greatest player of all time. Sorry about that, Chicago. Sorry about that, Chicago. So, you know, I see where people who put in incredible work, right? Thousands and thousands and thousands of jump shots, and it's appreciated. Now, people don't necessarily appreciate the fact that Kobe works that hard. He gets there 3 hours before anybody else and stays 2 hours later, right? Even Michael Jordan didn't have that work ethic. Because Jordan he had a tremendous work ethic, but he was doing other stuff. Gambling, playing baseball, doing a lot of stuff. Kobe was like basketball, as Shaquille told me, he said, I had 30 parties a year. And he said, that Negro came to work. And he said, he was like, no, man, I'm cool. And he said, they were coming home one night from the party at 3 o'clock in the morning. And he said, I don't know, he used the colorful language he had. He said, and this dude was coming out the gym with his trainer at 3 in the morning. He said, this is practicing at 3 a.m. in the morning? Right? So I'm saying all that to say, we don't appreciate what scholars and preachers and writers do at that level. Right? The hard work. Right? That's why I'm going to forever celebrate this man right here. You don't get that smart, that clear, that intelligent. You don't become Brenda Green. That is years of disciplined application of knowledge, wisdom, and insight to objects of scrutiny. And the overflow is of such power. So Obama, right, in the big world, compared to white politicians, he's an A+ already. Compared to our tradition, about a C-. Right? Now, look, to show you how self-critical I can be. Now, you know, I'm known as a preacher because I've been a preacher. That's my bread and butter. That's where I started. Now, among scholars and intellectuals who preach, I could be an A+. Among real black preachers, I'm about a B-. On a good day when I can pull it, right? Because the average Negro preacher with 12 people on the corner can out-preach Joel Osteen and everybody else. No disrespect. That Negro will get up and, I want to talk this morning about God is love. I don't want to talk about God. I don't want to talk about love. I want to talk about is. Is your all on the altar? Is you got good religion? I heard a Negro, this is no lie, on the 7 last words, when Jesus says, it is finished. He said, I-T, it. I is the ego of God. T is the cross. The ego was in contrast to cosmic consciousness. So forgive me, the preacher in me is going to end my book. Plus I'm an American, and I don't like them existential dramas in Europe. I want to see the person win. Right? I give you my bias. But my bias is even more deeply inscribed in the people for whom hope was not the mere vagary of a projection of a by-and-by reality. It was eschatological hope. Eschaton, the things in the end, the grave, death, judgment. And they already put pressure on time. That's different. And that's what I celebrate in Obama. At his best, that brother can stroke that because he was trained by one of the best in Jeremiah Wright. If you love Obama, you got to love Jeremiah Wright. Now, but at the same time, some of y'all saw the piece I wrote for New Republic magazine. It said, yes, she can. Why Hillary Clinton will do more for black people than Obama. Niggas like he done lost his damn mind. Right? Now, what I'm saying is that in the book I talk about it, only a close reader like him would figure see that. The reality is that when I looked at the speeches of Hillary Clinton over space and time, and this ain't just started 2 years ago, right? Hillary Clinton been on her game for a long time. Now look, I know Bernie people, the Bernieites get crazy. We're not electing a messiah, dude. We're electing a president. Bernie Sanders people on the left are like Donald Trump people on the right. Sorry, true believers, stop. This is an election. All of these people are flawed. For everything you can name about Hillary, you can name about everything, but you still got to elect a president.
Right.
You're still in the game if you're going to be in the game. You got to pull that lever or dimple that chair. And I'm not mad. Look, if Bernie Sanders becomes the nominee, I will work for that brother till the wheels fall off. But the Bernie Sanders people can't say that about Hillary Clinton. No. Oh, it's always some Susan Sarandon. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'll vote for Trump because the revolution will come quickly. Slow down with that. Miss me with that. Right? So here's the point. You are so arrogant, not her, I'm saying you collectively, to believe that your fallible investment in a limited finite politician is so ironclad that should your way not be had, you will not even consider an alternative within your larger political or ideological community. That is insane. So for me, when I do a look, and in that New Republic piece, I came as a skeptic. I talked about all the racist crap and the problematic stuff that the Clintons have done. I ain't one who got his head in the sand. But when I saw that development, when I saw that transformation, when I saw the persistence of her, as Khalil said, the way in which, while Obama is giving us pablum, she giving us steak and eggs. If you're a vegetarian, forget it. Giving, concentrated tofu. Thank you. You know about that. So here's a woman who's talking about asthma rates. Here's a woman who's speaking about the condition economically of black people. Here's a woman who's trying to talk about, look, she doesn't have the charisma of her husband. And she ain't got the skin color of Obama. So what she got left? At her best, she got public policy. The only thing she can do to win Negroes over is to come right. See, Obama done played the black card out. Right? She ain't got no black card. Hers is green. Right? Obama got the black card because he played us. Let's be honest. Anybody with that much power over people because they love him that much are going to play you. And you got to be Jesus not to play somebody. You got to be a prophet of Muhammad not to resist that. So my point is, she doesn't have black identification. She doesn't have a black pride generated in her. On the other hand, she ain't even got what her husband had. The ability to pimp Negroes because of his charisma. When Clinton went to a church, he knew the hymns and the hymn lines. Tell him, Doctor, I feel your pain. I feel mine. Anyway, so what does she have? Oh, boring Hillary. Oh, Hillary, who can't excite us, except Obama can excite us, but under him we have done far more poorly than anybody else. Under Obama, the unemployment rate just now inched back up from 4.9 this past, 2 days ago when they had the job reports, to 5.5%, still great. If you're white American, you ain't got no complaints about Barack Obama. He done hooked y'all up royally. Your economy is great. He bailed out the banks. He gave us health care. He gave us the automobile industry strengthened. He gave us the ability of TARP money to be redistributed. Now look, I don't care what you say, Obama's going to go down as one of the greatest presidents we've ever had. And he will be like the black Ronald Reagan. His reputation will only grow. In 20 years, he's going to be like Jesus walking on water. Right? For everybody except what he did for black people. And I'm saying this, what he has done on race will not help win him those plaudits. Barack Obama is the Shaquille O'Neal of presidents when it comes to black people. Shaquille O'Neal won 4 championships, was a dominant player, but he couldn't shoot free throws. Obama is a dominant president, but he can't shoot free throws. He can't speak honestly and openly about race. His hesitation was lethal, led to a gulf and a gap and a lacuna and an abyss and a big old space that's been occupied by Donald Trump. 2 forces cannot occupy the same space at the same time, so conscious racial discourse would have precluded some of the reactionary retaliation of the collective unconscious of a white supremacist mindset. So what I'm saying is that Hillary Clinton directly addresses that. Is she perfect? Hell no. Is she a person that's ideal? No. But she is a woman who's been treated with extraordinary forms of, to me, sexism. We don't even remark upon it. The sexism that Hillary Clinton gets is pretty damn astonishing, that nobody even speaks about it. And she keeps on ticking. If the orange-faced John Boehner cries, oh my God, what an exemplification of profound masculinity. If she cries, there's no crying in foot baseball. Why are you crying? The woman doesn't even have access to her emotions. They make her an automaton, a lack of charismatic figure, and yet at the end of the day, the constant drumbeat of her own public life has been about meeting the crises of people with public policy that will at least have the potential to address them. That's why I'm rolling with her, and that's why I think that she offers so much more substantively than Obama has and than Obama could. She has more permission to be black in public, her husband certainly did, than Obama. He can't play the saxophone on Arsenio. He can't dance. No, literally, he can't dance. But he can't go on Ellen and try to, oh, stop it. Do but first I whip, then I nay, stop. But because he doesn't have permission to be black. Yes. In the way that the white man has had permission to be black. I'm not suggesting that Bill Clinton is the Iggy Azalea of presidents. Where he's appropriated that, right? He's closer to Macklemore to a certain degree, but there is a way in which Obama doesn't have the privilege to be publicly black. So I'm acknowledging that, but at the same time, he lacks the courage to tell some of the truths about this that Hillary Clinton might more easily do without the same amount of courage, and yet it does take a certain kind of courage to speak back to whiteness in a way that makes you appear to be treacherous and traitorous to the very people who produce you. So that's what I meant when I talked about Hillary Clinton.
Well, so I'm going to read a few questions. I want to remind everyone that Mike's book's on sale, so please stick around for a book and a signing. I want to end on this note. So it seems to me that if Black America has stood as perhaps the best constituent for the limits of the presidency, will it stand up in the face of a Hillary presidency to remind America what the limits of the presidency are? In other words, are we headed for a reversal and to be called to a kind of contradiction and hypocrisy? Because we really have, as a community, talked a lot about what presidents can't do.
Right.
So you just talked about Hillary Clinton essentially playing a kind of race card.
Sure.
And I don't mean that in a cynical sense.
Right.
She is pushing herself in front of Black America across the South, has swept the South. I mean,
Right.
poor Bernie. It's like, you know, he gets whiter and older by the week because of Hillary's support in the South, largely because of Black Democratic voters. And yet one wonders what it is Black people are expecting from the presumptive Democratic nominee if presidents aren't supposed to look out for Black people.
Right. That's a brilliant point and a sarcastic one at the same time. I love that. I love this.
That really wasn't meant to be answered.
No. I love that. No, look, your point is so well taken, which is why Black people should have been warned about this and should have heard you, Coates and Cobb, because your point was, if you ain't gonna ask nothing to him, if I'm the next white president, don't ask me nothing. Right? I'm gonna be like this. You had your dude, and you ain't asking him nothing. So now you're gonna come to me, and I'm a white person. You had a brother up in here, a brother beloved that you dug. Now you asking more of me than of him. That's why it was always dangerous for us to do that. And this is what, and let me be even more sarcastic. You know, I told Black people, I said, we owe Ronald Reagan an apology. Because God dang it, we didn't give him no break. We didn't go, you know, the limits of the presidency exist such that, whereas, therefore, all these ergos, these Cartesian, you know, grammatical constructions. We were like, I don't give a damn, you president, this is what you're supposed to be doing. We ain't had so many qualifications as when Obama came, right? We ain't had so many qualifications as when Obama became president. The Black people know, well, you know the president can't do anything. I ain't never heard Negroes say that. I have never heard Negroes say and have so much knowledge about the constitutional limits of representative democracy. Damn, where y'all become constitutional scholars? Let me tell you what the president can do, girl. I mean, I ain't never seen so many Negroes be interested in that. Now, I understand it, because when Obama became president, I had to learn the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm just being serious. I mean, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
All right, we're gonna get to some of these questions.
Okay, but let me say this right quick. But I just want to finish your point. Hold on. Because it's so great what you said. If you have not asked and demanded of Obama to do the right thing, you have given up your ability to tell the next president, which is why you got to be on him, because you got to be on all presidents. But what's interesting is black people kept giving him a pass that they didn't give Ronald Reagan, that they didn't give George Bush, that they didn't give Bill Clinton, that they didn't give Jimmy Carter, and rightfully so. I'm glad they didn't. So the fact is, we were the hypocrites for giving Obama a pass that all presidents should be subject to. And here's the point. Now, this is the first thing black people will go though, but you know it's different. And I go, yes, I do know it's different. But because it's different, because Obama has been the first president never to get an automatic rise in the debt ceiling, the first president to be called a liar, right? We know all the stuff he did. So if he's the first one and he knows it, why couldn't he know that if they're doing this to me, why are they doing this to regular Negroes? If they're doing this to the president, then I got bodyguards. What they doing to Negroes who ain't got no bodyguards? It never occurred to him to believe empathetically in our condition. See, here's the paradox. Barack Obama became the symbolic expression of black America, and black America became the proxy for Obama. Couldn't kill him, kill us in the streets. Couldn't shoot him, shoot anonymous black men and women. Couldn't contain him, contain us. The state wanted to do things to Obama, couldn't assassinate him, have metaphorically and symbolically assassinated us. So in that level, I think your point is absolutely right about the limits of representative democracy and the presidential office. And black people have hypocritically, I think, made an argument. It's the same way in which black folk make the same argument against gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual people by using the Bible the same way that white supremacists used against us and against women to justify why women couldn't be preachers and why gay people couldn't be Christians. And we turn around and go, but it's different. You just like a sexual redneck. If you believe that there is a difference, right, in what, because they chose, when did you choose to be gay? Or when did you choose to be straight? You didn't go to your mom at 12 years old and say, look, I've made a choice among the competing sexualities that I've considered, and now I want to be straight. I want to holler at these hoochies. Oh, please, forgive me for that sexist, gendered remark that our young people make with frequency that is remarkable, and yet we think it's a choice as opposed to the collective enterprise of an awareness that people have about who they are. All I'm saying is, end by saying this, I'm saying the same way black people use the Bible, in the same way white supremacists used against us, then we turn around with the presidency and we are so hypocritical. In the same way that white folk kept saying, white folk used to tell us, you know the president can't do everything. We don't want to hear that. You know the president can't do it. We don't want to hear that. When Obama came, we were the ones saying, you know the president can't do that. And some of the white brothers and sisters were saying he's a failure because he didn't do X, Y, and Z. So that is on us. And if we don't hold him accountable, if we haven't held him accountable, we've lost our moral authority to hold any president accountable in the United States of America.
And on a positive note, it is our young people who have been the most explicit in holding them accountable.
No doubt about it. From the beginning, and in a way that they paid an enormous price for. Yes. And one of the things we haven't talked about, the Obama presidency has, you know when Jesus says, I come to deliver a sword and divide mother from father? Look, y'all know that. I ain't no pretend. Y'all know, y'all saw what I wrote about Cornel West. But you know the love I got for him. The Obama presidency has left casualties in its wake. Jeremiah Wright, Jesse Jackson, Cornel West, Tavis Smiley, Shirley Sherrod, right? So now I got disagreements with West and some with Smiley, but these are valued, insightful human beings who have fallen by the wayside, who have been put in a position as a result of making a choice about a man who often could not make a choice that was positive about us. Think about what that might mean.
So speaking of choices and marginality, Dion Bennett wants to know, why are black women still so marginalized within discourses about leadership in our community?
I mean, because we are inveterately sexist, because we are incapable of imagining leadership that is female, and yet that female leadership has been the thing that has basically saved us. And nobody, and check this out, no other group of people have done more for black men than black women. Right? We can't even turn the favor. Let's just do it based on what we owe for. Forget structure and philosophy, and part of it is women are complicit in that too. Can't let the women off. I pastored a church 1982, 83. I came in, I wanted to ordain 3 women as deacons. A year later, I ain't stupid. You can't just go in and do that. You got to teach Bible stuff. You got to make it look like Jesus believed it. I mean, you got to do the theology. I did that for a year. When I came to the church that day, my key didn't fit in the door. I thought, oh my God, they're changing the locks. My key to my office didn't fit. I said, oh my God, they're going to surprise me. They're going to give me, as the first pastoral anniversary, a new office. Oh, they did all right. So I got to, and I preached, and I said, there were many more people out there. I said, I must be getting good. All right, I must be a good preacher. All these people out here I've never seen before. At the end of the sermon, Deacon got up and he said, Pastor, we got a problem in this church. I said, let's fix it. He said, it's you. He said, you trying to come down here and ordain these women and change our ways. And I found out that a local minister said, you're going to let this yellow nigga, he didn't say Negro, he didn't say African American, he didn't say Christian. He said, this yellow nigga, so don't tell me it started with Snoop Dogg. He said, you're going to let this yellow nigga come down here and mess our church up. And that morning they took a vote and put me out of the church. Now, a lot of people who voted with them were women. Now, I ain't stupid. They said, look, that Negro right there, leave him. We live with these Negroes. So I get it. Don't get it wrong. But still, being complicit in your own oppression is an unsexy and unreliable methodology. So the reason we do it, we get rewarded. The reason we do it is because women's invisibility is never a problem to the degree that it forces us to think about it. And it's no better represented than in Barack Obama, who with 3 choices for the Supreme Court couldn't find a Negro woman, a black woman, who was worthy of respect. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you this. I know a lot of black people came up, look, well, he had to play chess, not checkers. No, if you're playing chess, get a black woman, because you know they ain't gonna support nobody you get anyway. Then you A, expose their racism, but B, if Hillary wins and she can do a recess appointment, you therefore put in place a black woman who will now step up into the spot. If you're gonna play chess real. And so Obama is representative of that very problem of not understanding. And let me tell you what the signal he sent to white America. Just like y'all, I just can't find a good one. And when they pressed him, you know what he said? Just like white brothers and sisters tell us, I'm not going for the black candidate, I'm going for the best candidate. Man, that's a colossal middle finger in the face of black America.
Well, speaking of middle fingers, the next question is about your recent visit to Cuba, and it comes from MIC. I can't read the last, but it's either Mick or Mike. Asked, with President Obama's historical trip to Cuba, do you think he met with Assata Shakur? And do you think he will pardon Assata Shakur on his way out of office?
Hell no. Hell no. Look, now I know it's an apocryphal story. You know, people try to spread the story that Obama went over there and demanded that Assata Shakur be returned. Now, he ain't, no. No, please tell me, Jesus, that didn't happen. I don't think it did, absolutely. But no, he ain't gonna, come on now. He ain't gonna pardon Assata Shakur. I met with her when I went to Cuba. Just gonna let you know that. Right? If they can give me some vocal days and some love up in here. A remarkable, brilliant, beautiful woman. No, he didn't meet with her. Now, and I can, look, we know why he couldn't meet with her, right? I'm not trying to, say, Obama did not go over and meet with a woman who's been on the 10 most, wanted list for the last 25, 30 years. Of course not. Of course he's not going to go meet with her and say, I just wanted to have a conversation with a sister I happened to be there, and she was the only one available. No! We know why he couldn't do that. The problem is he represents a state that undercuts the legitimacy of Assata Shakur. And if he couldn't speak about police brutality when there was the most available reason for him to do so, and there was the greatest pass any president has been given, or any black political figure, if he couldn't do it then, there's no way in hell he's going to go to Cuba and, with all that was going on there, meet with Assata Shakur. I understand why he didn't do that. But the reality is the state that he represents is in direct conflict with the kind of policies that she tried to fight. And unfortunately, Obama's inability to be ahead of the curve and come to the game late suggests that there's no way in the world he would have the political mobility to meet with an Assad Shakur, nor the ability at this point to partner. But I wish he would. Look at Bush. Look at Clinton, how they pardon people on the way out. Like, I ain't president no more. Have at it. Mark, Rich. You know, look at all these people they were, like, murdering. I mean, the people that they were pardoning. I wish Obama would wake up one day and realize he is the president. I am the man.
You want him to have a Richard Pryor moment.
A Richard Pryor moment would be beautiful.
All right, so this is going to be our last question. As a writer, educator in this current social climate of society, this is by Kevin Anglade. How do we go about teaching race and its construct in a way that everyone embraces what's being talked about without having to feel excluded or alienated in the process? Especially with America being a multicultural nation.
Yes, sir. No, that's a great question. You know, on the one hand, you've got Obama felt the same thing. Everybody can't like you, though. Everybody can't dig what you're doing. Obama is one of the most decent human beings you will ever meet. But he also is needy, right? In a way, ironically enough, around the issue of race, that he's not needy in other areas, right? It's been said that Bill Clinton is is a canine. I was going to say dog, but canine, right? In terms of personality. 99 people, there's 100 people in the room, 99 people like you, but the one doesn't. What does the dog do? Right? Well, Clinton want to know, why don't you like me? I'm good. I do things. I'm smart. Okay, that's Fredo. Right. Come on, y'all. I'm smart, Mike. I could have done it. I'm smart. Right? So the dog is like, 99 people dig me, but I don't care about the 99 people. I care about the one. Obama's like a cat. The cat is like, if you dig me, that's cool. If you don't, kiss my ass. Now, there's something sexy and beautiful about that, too. He does that with others, but when it comes to race, he just wants to be accepted. And I understand that, but sometimes, now look, let me take the first part of the question, then I'll come to the second. The point is that we should strive to be in a multicultural reality, in a multiracial world. We should strive to be as conscientious as we can to think about the fact that race is bigger than black and white. Right? You got the Pacific Rim, you got Asian, you got Latino, you got multiple varieties of differences that operate simultaneously. You know, and if we were living in Texas, we'd feel the difference. If we were living in California or Florida, we'd feel the difference. But we live, you feel it in New York, but in a different way. So the reality is that while that's true, the black-white divide has been the major artery through which the blood of bigotry has flowed throughout the body politic for our history. So we can't pretend, because even among Latinos, the dark light thing is real. Right. Yes. Even among Negroes, the dark light thing is real. Right?
And even among white folks, the dark light.
Come on, starving Italian from the southern Italy versus those who are northern, right? So it operates, so don't act like skin color don't make no damn difference, right? Having said that, at the same time, we've got to work toward a world when it's possible for us to talk about race in a way that helps people understand what's at stake, right? Now, Malcolm X, you know, that iconic moment when the white woman comes up to him and asks him what she can do, and he said, nothing. Now, that might satisfy our anger, but it can't satisfy our passion for knowledge. I love Malcolm X. Wrote a book on him, right? But that was, to me, a missed opportunity. And what this man does, what Dr. Green does, what Dr. Reynolds, and Dr. Rudy Kruger shot him out here at the university, at the college, you know, what people are engaged in doing, Dr. Mean Alexander and all the wonderful professors who were there last night, what these folk are engaged in doing is understanding who they are, but also willing to tell the truth to people who might have to have it explained. Yeah. This is the thing I disagreed, and I love the panel yesterday on hip-hop. But when they were talking about, hey, I don't want to write no essay because I got to explain it, but when I do hip-hop, I ain't got to explain it. Well, I want to argue, first of all, you do be having to explain it. To those of us who don't know what the hell you saying in hip-hop, what you saying. Now, you can say it to people who presume, but even there's linguistic variation. There's generational difference. There's even geographical difference. Look, even with Ebonics back in the day, you know, if you were born in upper middle class Chicago or in California or Detroit, you didn't know what we knew in the hood. Watch out for that alley apple. Excuse me, is that an apple that grows in the alley? No, for us, that was a brick. We said alley apple, we talking about a damn brick. Watch out, son. So, those differences make a difference. So you have to explain. And I know that some of our students go, I ain't here to explain to you. I'm a black student, and I'm here to get an education, just like you. Look, I understand that, you get fatigued. At the same time, look, when this man go to Harvard, he gonna remember this soon. He's gonna make academia for a minute, but he gonna get readjusted very soon to what we've been doing up in this piece. He knows, Joe. We do stuff. They ain't paying us for that. They ain't paying me to talk about these students. You ain't in my class. That's my job. White folk will say, I've seen you on television, Dr. Dyson. I have a voice. I gotta do it. I have to explain. And I'm invested in explaining. I don't see that as the surrender of my position of authority. I don't see that as somehow antithetical to my survival. I see that as an extension of a tradition that is humane, that wants people to know. If people are interested and curious enough to want to know and are willing to be self-critical and to examine their own biases, then I got to talk to them. That would be like me saying, I don't want to talk to people who are homophobic in my church. They there, but they want to talk. Let's talk. So I think talking is better than fighting and bleeding and hurting and damning and harming. And so for me, I think we should do that, but we should also challenge it. Obama got that part right. The part he doesn't and didn't and maybe never will, but I don't know, is the fact that you got the ear of white folk, you got to challenge them, sir. You can't just reinforce. The one time Obama was willing to challenge people as white people, because he challenges black people as black people. When you talk about feeding your kids chicken and all that stuff, and that's challenging us as black people. Obama did it one time before he became president. You know that famous Tony fundraiser in San Francisco when he said those people who were white get their guns and cling to their religion. You saw Sarah Palin signify on him that way. We gun clinging, blah, blah, blah. She's funny as hell. So Obama tried that one time. What did white people do? Clowned him, clubbed him, criticized him. And what did he do? He shut the hell up. Now, first of all, the Negroes had done the same thing the first time he came at us with this left-wise discourse, going to Morehouse College telling Negroes, ain't nobody gonna give you nothing you didn't earn. Nigga, please. Here you are, being the only black person that day who got a degree you didn't earn. Because you got an honorary degree. And I don't think nigga please. I'm not calling him a nigga. I don't want the people who record this. I'm not saying him. That's a pejorative term to some and a collective one to others. I'm not calling Obama a nigga. I'm saying nigga please as an exclamation. Alright? So nigga please. So what I'm saying is that you're the only person who got an honorary degree, and when you went to Barnard and you spoke to them, because I read the speech, he went out of his way to identify with white women who were victimized by sexism. So I'm saying, can we get some of that? So this guy who has gone out of his way has not understood that you have got to challenge white people too. You can't always, as my pastor used to tell me about my congregation, you can't just shout your people all the time, make them say hallelujah. You got to make them uncomfortable. And Obama has never deliberately, he makes white people uncomfortable just by being. Not, right, just your existence. Just by breathing. He has been profiled president while black. Presiding while black. He has been profiled in his Oval Office. Even the president got a traffic cop of race on his behind. But he made them uncomfortable inadvertently as a consequence of who he is, as an ancillary feature of his identity. But his willingness to challenge white folk and his inability to challenge him is one of the great marks against him, and lacking in courage. Yeah, even with the limits that were imposed upon him, even with all of the vicious obstructions he faced, he was willing to do a lot of stuff. He was not willing to tell the truth as much as possible within reason to white America about the things it was doing. And then this is what people tell me all the time. Well, when he gets out of office, Michael Jordan said he was going to talk about race when he got out of basketball. Nobody give a damn then, homie. They on to the next one. They on to LeBron. They on to Kobe. They on to whoever else. So the next president is Hillary Clinton. What she's doing now? Obama's going to be a star forever among us, right? Here's the irony. I'm not saying white America won't accept him as a global part, but you know who's going to love him most to the day he rides up into heaven. It's going to be black people. On the backs of black people, Toni Morrison said, America was built. And the implicit predicate of black inferiority as the means for immigrants to become American. Hey, we can dog the Negro. First thing they learn, hey, let's dog them. Because if we dog them, we get in league with them. Here's a harder piece, even white Arabs, who before 9/11 were symbolically white in many ways. Now we know Islamophobia is deep and profound and has been before then, but let's not pretend. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I saw the way in which the absorption into whiteness and then 9/11 sand nigger among many people in terms of their consciousness. And they got demonized and now joined those of us who've been terrorized since 1619. So my point is, when we think about this in the collective, Obama failed us to that degree. Smart as he is, and you half white. You know, and he knew what upset white America. And he deferred to it in a way that disallowed him. He not only failed black America, he failed white America too. To have them own up to their traditions and their traditions. And when he does it out of office, I hope he has a successful career. I hope we continue to love him. But he will not have the bully pulpit that he has right now in the remaining months. I don't expect him to paint the White House black, but red, black, and green would be beautiful.
If you're still watching right now, you clearly enjoyed this video, so please share it with others and subscribe to our channel. This small gesture of support will allow ALBC.com to produce higher quality videos more frequently. And thanks for watching.